Hi there guys, thanks for stopping by. In the vise today I have an ERA Kitemark 1-star cylinder. This was very kindly sent to me by GordonW, and I remember saying in my last video when I picked the ERA padlock he sent over to me that if this thing was as good as the padlock then I'd be having a hard time, and I didn't realise how right it was going to be. This thing has been giving me quite a bit of bother, so I shall be very glad to get it on camera and have a look at the pins inside. So I'm just going to get stuck right into this. There's not really much else to say. It's a 6-pin lock. I have noticed it seems like this has got it's like the front here is separate from the rest of the core. There's a bit of a lip on the inside there, but it doesn't really affect picking. I will say that the keyway is pretty restrictive. It is a power-centric keyway, but I don't normally have too many problems with these standard stock Euro cylinders. It's normally a couple of spools and a little bit of counter-rotation and you open them up pretty quickly, but this one, I think this one has got fairly sharp spool pins in it, and we'll talk a bit more about that in just a bit. I'm just going to have a go at picking it. I think the hardest part is actually working around this difficult keyway. So I'll get some focus here and we'll see what we can do. So we're dropped into a little bit of a false set. I have had bigger false sets out of this though, so let's see. So what I found is you've got to get this into quite a deep false set, and then you're kind of halfway there. But I shall be expecting some fairly nice pins inside. We've got quite a deep false set there. What I found with this is, in some locks that have spool pins, when you get counter rotation, you can just continue to pick the pin, and it will sort of it will turn the core back far enough that the pin can actually get set. But with this one, you have to feel for the feedback, and then you have to kind of manually turn the tension back. So let's see, like for example in this case I'm getting feedback on my tension wrench, so I'm going to ease off the tension, manually counter rotate and set that pin, and that actually ended up being the last pin that we had to pick anyway. So it has been giving me quite a bit of bother. That's probably one of the fastest times I've had with this one. So what I'm going to do now is take the lock apart. Just before I do, I'll show you these things here. I'm not sure what that's all about. I suspect that's maybe from a slightly different model of cylinder. I'm not sure. Anyway, so give me a moment and I shall gut the lock. Alright, wow, so that's a lot gutted, and I have to say, I was expecting something special, but I wasn't really expecting all of that. Wow. Where do I start? I've never seen a lock like this before, certainly not a factory factory-made lock. I think we'll start with the core here. We'll see that it does have the sacrificial cut they make there in the core, so that it's easier if you try to snap it, just the core, just the front of the lock snaps off and leaves the rest of the lock inside. I'm not sure again if this is a reused core from a different model, because there's no sacrificial cuts on the actual body itself, so I'm not sure if that would have much effect. Otherwise, this piece right here, which I initially thought the front of the core was maybe a separate piece that they put on there, but it turns out that this is actually drill protection, I believe, that they just slot down inside here. Very, very clever. I've never seen something like that before. And I suppose this, sorry, I'm going out of frame, I suppose this would have been more effective in an attack than just simple rods put down in there. Very unusual. What's even more unusual are the pins here. First of all, we have got steel pins right at the front here. I thought when I took these pins out that somebody had been at the lock before me and had accidentally put 2 pins into the one chamber. I don't really understand what that's about. Maybe it's master wafers, but let me just see. So when I put the 2 pins in there, well, that's the first pin right there. The other one would sit on top of that. It's not actually perfectly flush. I think that would catch in there. I don't understand why they've put 2 pins in there instead of just one whole one. It doesn't really make much sense at all to me. But that would not affect the picking as far as I know. As in, we wouldn't have more than one shear line, it would just be that shear line right there. We do have spool pins, as I expected. I'm not sure if these were what was giving me all the trouble. Now that I see this thing right here, this is like a T-pin, but I think it was configured with the spring in it like this. Perhaps this is like an anti-bump feature. I thought it came out with the spring, like inside the spring, but maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe it is just a very long T-pin. I can imagine that being a very effective anti-bump feature, and that would also explain why I was getting such deep false sets. And I think the other 2 chambers are just the same. We've got spool pins and again those split pins there. I don't see any modifications to the core that would affect the feedback at all, but wow, I have to say I've never seen anything like this before. This spring right here is a much bigger spring than the others, so I'm not sure. I'm going to have to double check the video to make sure that that wasn't actually in conjunction with this one right here. But all the same, definitely not what I was expecting. A bit out of the ordinary, and I definitely want to give a very big shout out and thank you to GordonW who sent this over to me. Please do check out his channel, and that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll hope to see you again soon.